Old Hollywood is littered with the bones of blockbusters and forgotten masterpieces. But let's be honest, the 1940s were hiding some real cinematic dynamite that slipped straight through the cracks. Everyone's heard of Casablanca, but what about the films that didn't make the AFI highlight reel, yet could still knock you out of your chair? How many hidden gems from the 40s have you actually seen, and how many are sitting just out of reach, collecting dust in the vaults? Stick around, because the real shocker is how many you've never even heard of, and what's waiting for you down this rabbit hole just might change how you see Hollywood's golden age. The Glass Key, 1942. If you think film noir peaked with The Maltese Falcon, think again. The Glass Key is the tough, unshaven cousin that shows up to the family reunion, wrecks the joint, and then slips out before dessert. Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake, Hollywood's original smoke and fire duo, head up a cast so sharp you could cut your finger just reading the credits. This isn't your granddad's polite whodunit. It's a bare-knuckle brawl through the world of backroom deals, dirty money, and politicians you wouldn't trust with your lunch order. Oh, the plot? Imagine a political fixer with more skeletons in his closet than a Halloween supply store, a best friend who's got a knack for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and a blonde who could set off the sprinklers just by walking into a room. Murder, double crosses, and enough snappy dialogue to make your head spin. Ladd's Ed Beaumont spends most of the film dodging bullets and bad decisions, while Lake's Janet Henry proves that femme fatales don't need a gun to be dangerous. Behind the camera, you've got Stuart Heisler working from a Dashiell Hammett story, so the script crackles, the shadows are thick as molasses, and the tension never lets up. It's a classic noir with none of the stuffiness. People talk about on-screen chemistry, but Ladd and Lake are pure combustion. Forget Oscar bait melodrama. The Glass Key is all grit, sweat, and sharp suits. So, why is it forgotten? Simple. It got buried by the big titles and then left behind when noir became more respectable. But miss this, and you miss out on the DNA of every modern crime thriller. If you want Hollywood with the gloves off, start here. The More the Merrier, 1943. Forget everything you think you know about romantic comedies from the Golden Age. The More the Merrier is what happens when Hollywood stops playing coy and starts cranking up the chaos. Set against the real-life madness of the World War II housing crunch in Washington, D.C., this movie takes cramped living and turns it into pure comedic gold. Jean Arthur, all jittery nerves and razor wit, finds her apartment invaded by not one, but two unexpected roommates, the smooth-talking Joel McCrea and the scene-stealing Charles Coburn. Here's the setup. Coburn's a mischievous old matchmaker who figures the only way to survive the housing shortage is to force a little proximity and maybe a love connection. What follows is a riot of near misses, miscommunications, and some of the fastest, funniest dialogue to ever hit celluloid. Arthur's Connie Milligan tries to keep her life in order, but with McCrea's sergeant around, things go from tidy to tangled in a heartbeat. This film is a masterclass in comedic timing. Coburn, who snagged an Oscar for this, weaves in and out, upending the piece at every turn, but never tipping over into pure farce. The chemistry between Arthur and McCrea is off the charts, with a slow-burn romance that's got more bite than sugar. Every scene feels spontaneous, every gag lands, and there's just enough heart to remind you why you care about these oddballs in the first place. So why did this gem fade? Blame it on changing tastes and the shadow of war. After the 40s, audiences went looking for escapism, and movies about crowded apartments and rationed coffee took a back seat. But if you want to see where today's romantic comedies get their bones, The More the Merrier is a must. Just try watching without grinning. Bet you can't. So Proudly We Hail, 1943. If you think Hollywood only told war stories through the lens of grizzled soldiers and cigar-chomping generals, So Proudly We Hail is here to knock that notion flat. This is a World War II epic from the trenches, but the heroes are women, battle-scarred, steel-nerved, and twice as brave as half the men on screen. Claudette Colbert, Paulette Goddard and Veronica Lake star as military nurses caught up in the desperate chaos of Bataan. Forget patriotic speeches and marching bands. This film is all blood, heartbreak, and the stubborn will to survive. What sets it apart? For one thing, it rips the Band-Aid off the sanitized version of war Hollywood liked to peddle. These women face bombings, betrayals, impossible choices, and the trauma isn't neatly tied up by the closing credits. Colbert leads with a quiet toughness, Goddard is pure grit, and Lake, typically cast as the cool blonde, shatters expectations as a haunted, shell-shocked medic. You see friendship, sacrifice, even flashes of romance, but at its core, this is a story about women pushed to their limits and refusing to back down. Director Mark Sandrich pulls zero punches. The explosions are real, the losses sting, and there's no sugarcoating. When this hit theaters, audiences were stunned and a little uncomfortable. That's why it's forgotten. Hollywood tried to put it back in the vault, but the truth has a habit of leaking out. So, Proudly We Hail is raw, riveting, and still lands like a gut punch. If you want a war film that doesn't flinch, dig this one up. It's the kind of movie that makes you wonder how many untold stories are still hiding in the shadows of history. The Seventh Victim, 1943. Think classic Hollywood couldn't do psychological horror? Think again. The Seventh Victim creeps up on you like a cold hand in the dark. Produced by Val Lewton, king of subtle chills, this is a film where terror isn't in the monster, it's in the mood. Kim Hunter stars as a naive young woman searching for her missing sister, only to stumble into a shadowy Manhattan world riddled with secrets, cults, and existential dread. What's brilliant here isn't jump scares, but the atmosphere. Long, silent corridors, whispers behind locked doors, and a sense that something terrible is always lurking just off-screen. Director Mark Robson keeps things tight and claustrophobic, making the city feel like a haunted house with no exits. Tom Conway and Jean Brooks round out a cast of mysterious strangers, each with a motive and a mask. The Seventh Victim isn't just a horror film, it's a meditation on fear, loneliness, and the darkness people carry inside. You can draw a straight line from this film to the modern psychological thriller, with all its shadows and ambiguity. When people talk about ahead of its time, this is what they mean. Forget what you think you know about 1940s horror. This one will leave you looking over your shoulder. So, why did it fade away? Easy. Audiences weren't ready for a movie with no easy answers and an ending that doesn't wrap things up with a bow. But if you want a film that gets under your skin, The Seventh Victim is a slow-burn masterpiece. Turn off the lights and see how long you last. Ministry of Fear, 1944. Paranoia, Nazis, cake. No, seriously, cake. Ministry of Fear is what happens when master of suspense Fritz Lang lets loose on a Graham Greene novel, and the result is a high-tension thriller that kicks off with a slice of innocent sponge cake and spirals into pure Hitchcockian nightmare. Ray Milland plays a man fresh out of an asylum, just trying to mind his own business at a country fair. Next thing you know, he's being chased by Nazi spies across war-torn England. The genius of Ministry of Fear is in how ordinary everything seems, right until it isn't. A simple charity raffle turns deadly. A sweet old lady is anything but. Even the cakes are suspicious. Lang uses every trick in the noir playbook, canted angles, inky shadows, and set pieces that coil tighter and tighter with every scene. Milland is the perfect wrong man, always 2 steps behind the truth and 1 step ahead of disaster. This isn't a movie that holds your hand. You're dropped into the confusion and forced to unravel the plot right along with the hero. Blink and you'll miss a clue. Zone out and you'll be as lost as Milland in a foggy London alley. If you love edge-of-your-seat suspense with a side of war-era weirdness, this is your ticket. Why's it forgotten? It got steamrolled by bigger wartime thrillers and never found its cult. But trust, this is a ride worth taking, and you'll never look at cake the same way again. The Uninvited, 1944. Haunted houses are a dime a dozen, but The Uninvited is the blueprint, the atmospheric ghost story that modern horror keeps trying to copy but never quite matches. Ray Milland and Ruth Hussey buy a crumbling seaside mansion, hoping for peace and quiet. What they get is doors that slam, lights that flicker, and a ghost with a grudge who refuses to stay silent. What's wild is how The Uninvited pulls off real scares without the cheesy tricks. The soundtrack is eerie, the cinematography turns shadows into characters, and the ghostly presence is felt long before it's seen. There's even a chilling backstory that's more than just a throwaway plot device. It's woven into every creak and cold spot in the house. This isn't just a horror film, it's a slow-burning mystery and a family drama, all wrapped in fog and candlelight. Hussey is the skeptic, Milland is the believer, and together they try to unearth the secrets that keep the house restless. The film's big reveal still lands. Even if you think you've seen every ghost story out there, why did it slip through the cracks? Maybe it was overshadowed by louder, flashier horrors, or maybe audiences weren't ready for something so elegantly spooky. But The Uninvited is pure class, a haunted house film that respects your intelligence and still manages to make you jump. Leave the lights on for this one. None But the Lonely Heart, 1944. You think Cary Grant is all charm and quips? Think again. None But the Lonely Heart yanks him out of the tuxedo and drops him into the soot-streaked world of working-class London. Grant plays Ernie Mott, a restless drifter caught between duty and self-destruction as he cares for his ailing mother, played to perfection by Ethel Barrymore. This is Grant at his rawest. No slick hair, no fast talk, just a battered soul trying to find a reason to stay. The movie doesn't sugarcoat the poverty, the longing, or the sense of being trapped by your own family. Director Clifford Odets, himself a poet of working-class struggle, shoots London as a grey maze of empty pubs and broken dreams. The dynamic between Grant and Barrymore is electric, swinging between love and resentment, warmth and desperation. Barrymore won an Oscar, and Grant should have. Every moment is a battle, against time, against circumstance, against the urge to run. Why did this one fade away? Maybe it's too real, too downbeat, or just too far from the Grant everyone wanted to see. But if you're looking for the heart and guts of 1940s cinema, you can't skip it. None. But The Lonely Heart is a reminder that even the biggest stars have shadows, and sometimes that's where the best stories hide. Leave Her to Heaven, 1945. There are thrillers, and then there's Leave Her to Heaven, a film so glamorous, so vicious, it practically invented the phrase, "looks can kill." Gene Tierney is at the center of this Technicolor fever dream, playing Ellen, a woman whose devotion curdles into a kind of obsession you can't look away from. Forget the grizzled detectives and rain-soaked streets of most noirs. Here, you get blinding sunlight, sparkling lakes, and scenery so pretty it's almost disorienting until you realize something rotten is lurking beneath the surface. Tierney's performance is ice-cold brilliance. She's not your classic femme fatale with a gun in her purse. She's got something sharper, an intensity that makes every smile and glance loaded with danger. The infamous rowboat scene? If you know, you know. If you don't, prepare to be haunted. Cornell Wilde and Gene Crane do their best to keep up, but Tierney owns the film from start to finish. Why is this forgotten? Maybe because it was too dark, too twisted, or just too far ahead of its time. Leave Her to Heaven flips the script on every safe Hollywood love story. Here, passion turns deadly, and jealousy is painted in broad, beautiful strokes. You won't find another film where Technicolor feels this sinister. Want to see how far obsession can go? This is your ticket. Scarlet Street, 1945. If you've ever wondered what happens when a good man makes one terrible mistake, Scarlet Street is your answer, and it's not pretty. Directed by the legendary Fritz Lang, this is a noir that goes straight for the jugular. Edward G. Robinson drops his usual gangster swagger to play Christopher Cross, a sad-eyed clerk whose life unravels the minute he falls for a scheming femme fatale played by Joan Bennett. This isn't a world of clear-cut heroes and villains, It's a swamp of desperation, double crosses, and moral quicksand. Cross thinks he's found a shot at happiness, but Lang never lets him, or the audience, off the hook. Dan Duryea as the oily boyfriend adds just the right amount of menace, and every frame drips with a sense of doom that feels both operatic and intimate. Why did Scarlet Street fade? Maybe because it was banned in several cities. Maybe because it refused to give viewers any comfort or easy answers. This is noir at its meanest. No neat redemption, just consequences. If you want to see the darker side of the American dream, this is a masterclass in how bad choices breed worse ones. The Enchanted Cottage, 1945. Some movies hit you with spectacle, others with sentiment. The Enchanted Cottage sneaks up on you and works a quiet magic, leaving you with a lump in your throat and a feeling you can't quite shake. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a fable for grown-ups about love, loss, and the ways we see ourselves. Dorothy Maguire and Robert Young play a pair of wounded souls. She's shy and self-effacing. He's a disfigured war veteran who find themselves drawn together in a remote cottage rumored to possess mysterious powers. It's not the cottage that works the miracle. It's their ability to see the beauty in each other when the world refuses to look past scars. Director John Cromwell keeps the mood gentle, letting the story breathe and the performances shine. The transformation that unfolds is as much about hope as it is about heartbreak. Why is this film so overlooked? Maybe because it's not flashy. There's no murder, no chase scenes, no grand speeches. But if you're ready for a romance that's honest, tender, and quietly profound, The Enchanted Cottage is a rare find. Sometimes the biggest magic is just two people seeing the truth in each other's eyes. The Suspect, 1944. Think Hitchcock had a monopoly on ordinary people cornered by circumstance? Think again. The Suspect is a slow-burn thriller that simmers with suspense. Charles Laughton plays Philip Marshall, a mild-mannered shopkeeper in Edwardian London who's trapped in a loveless, soul-crushing marriage. When he meets a much younger woman and tastes happiness for the first time, you know things can only end badly, and boy, do they. Laughton is a masterclass in restraint here. Every word, every glance hints at the storm raging beneath his placid exterior. Director Robert Siodmak, no stranger to suspense, ramps up the tension by degrees until the question isn't if Marshall will snap, but when. Ella Raines is luminous as his chance at redemption, and the supporting cast makes every scene count. So why don't we talk about The Suspect anymore? Maybe it's because it never quite fit the noir mold, or maybe Laughton was too good at disappearing into the role. But this film deserves a comeback for its subtlety and its sense of doom that never quite lets up. Want a thriller that knows when to whisper instead of shout? Here it is. My Name is Julia Ross, 1945. Sometimes the scariest movies aren't the ones with monsters or shadows. They're the ones where the world turns upside down and nobody believes you. My Name is Julia Ross is the ultimate gaslight thriller. Nina Foch stars as a woman who takes a job as a live-in secretary and wakes up in a strange house, with strangers insisting she's someone else. Suddenly, her whole life has been rewritten, and the walls start closing in fast. Director Joseph H. Lewis wrings every drop of suspense from the setup. The English manor is all locked doors, chilly corridors, and whispered secrets. Foch's Julia is determined, resourceful, and never once plays the helpless victim. What makes this film snap is its brisk pacing, no filler, just pure paranoia from start to finish. Every new twist feels earned, and the sense of isolation is palpable. Why has this film slipped into obscurity? Maybe because it's so lean and efficient that it flies by in a blink. But My Name is Julia Ross paved the way for decades of woman-in-peril stories, and it still outpaces most of them. Looking for a mystery that gets your heart racing without wasting a second? Here's your hidden gem. They Live by Night, 1948. Before Bonnie and Clyde crashed onto the big screen, They Live by Night blazed the trail for every doomed lovers-on-the-run story that followed. But this is no crime spree thrill ride. It's a bruised, desperate ballad about young people crushed by circumstance. Farley Granger is Bowie, a fresh-faced kid busted out of prison and swept into a life of getaway cars and backroad hideouts. Kathy O'Donnell is Kichi, the girl who dreams of something better but clings to love even as the noose tightens. Director Nicholas Ray's first film is so modern it feels ripped out of a later era. The camera floats and weaves, capturing stolen moments of tenderness between chases and betrayals. There's an aching innocence here, a sense that these two might actually outrun the world, until reality shows up and slams the door. The violence is quick, the romance urgent, and the ending packs a punch that still stings. So why don't more people talk about They Live by Night? Chalk it up to bad timing and a studio that didn't know what to do with something this raw. But this film rewrote the rules for noir and anti-heroes. If you want to know where the outlaw lovers myth really started, this is essential viewing. Just don't expect a happy ending. This one's for those who like their classics bittersweet. The Window 1949. Kids lie. That's what grown-ups say. But what if the kid is telling the truth and nobody listens? The Window is a white-knuckle suspense ride from start to finish, built on one of the simplest, scariest ideas in storytelling. A boy witnesses a murder, but no one believes him. Bobby Driscoll delivers a knockout performance as Tommy, the kid with a reputation for tall tales who suddenly finds himself in real, mortal danger. Set in the sweltering tenements of New York, the film wastes zero time. The city is hot, crowded, and alive with menace. Every adult dismisses Tommy. Every shadow hides a threat, and the tension just ratchets up with each passing minute. Director Ted Tetzlaff, a former cinematographer, knows how to make every staircase and alleyway pulse with dread. You feel every ounce of Tommy's fear as he's hunted through the night, and by the time the climax rolls around, you're sweating right alongside him. Why is The Window overlooked? Maybe because people think suspense is just for grown-ups. But this is a thriller that delivers more genuine anxiety than most horror flicks twice its size. If you want a forgotten film that grabs you by the collar and doesn't let go, this is your shot. Sleep tight if you can. Sleep. The Setup 1949. Boxing movies are a dime a dozen, but none hit harder than The Setup. Forget triumphant comebacks and inspirational speeches. This is a fight story with blood in its teeth and heartbreak in its bones. Robert Ryan plays Stoker Thompson, an aging journeyman who's supposed to take a dive for the mob. The catch? Nobody bothered to tell him. As the clock ticks, Stoker's pride won't let him go down easy, and the ring turns into a battleground for his soul. Director Robert Wise shoots the whole thing in real time, amping up the tension with every swing and swell of the crowd. The arena is claustrophobic, the backrooms even more so. Audrey Totter plays Stoker's wife, watching from the cheap seats, every punch landing on her as much as on him. There's sweat, pain, and the grim knowledge that sometimes the world just doesn't let you win. Why does The Setup get left off lists? Maybe it's too raw, too honest, or just too true for comfort. But if you're looking for the boxing movie that throws out the playbook and shows you the dark side of the dream, this is the one to watch. Step into the ring if you think you can take it. There you have it. 15 forgotten films from the 1940s that deserve a standing ovation, not a spot in the archives. Hollywood's golden age was a lot grittier, weirder, and wilder than the highlight reels want you to remember. Which one shocked you the most? Which hidden gem are you rushing to find tonight? Drop your picks in the comments, and let's see who's brave enough to dig up the deep cuts. Hit subscribe for more cinematic treasure hunts, because sometimes the movies nobody talks about are the ones you'll never forget.